Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Awaken Way podcast. This week, my assistant Christy has taken segments from various episodes of my monthly connection online live webinars where we take questions from those of you attending and I ask my guide Sanaya for the answers. So you're going to see segments from various webinars over the months with the questions being asked by an assortment of my assistants. So that's why when we start off here, the first person you'll see is the wonderful Bev Garlip, who's been with me for 14 years. I never know what the questions are that my friends are going to ask me. I always trust Spirit to give the best answers. And this time, Christy has selected questions that she knows will be of interest to all of you. So I hope you'll enjoy this assortment, and I hope it will just open your heart to what's possible for all of us in connecting with Spirit. Enjoy.
What is the best way to know if angels are present for me if I'm not good at feeling energy at all yet?
The best way is to have this attitude of, I wonder if this is real, how they might show up to me. This childlike sense of miracles are possible, a miracle mindset, and just trust. You tell kids Santa Claus is real, they trust you, right? And then the presents show up under the tree. So mom and dad were Santa Claus, but Santa Claus was real for that kid. So trust that the angels are real. What is real? Whatever arises in consciousness and that is helpful and healing and brings you learning. So trust that there are vibratory beings with a greater perspective than we have, and say, I wonder what will happen if I start calling on them, if I start asking them for help, like was suggested last night. And then just write down the miracles that ensue. Just having that kind of miracle mindset will change your life. And then the angels will use that energy to be able to get through to you more easily. See how it works? The guides reminded me, it's something I just learned recently. It's called the law of complementarity. The angels need you to give them your energy. And the request does that, to give them their energy so that they can work with you. And so that childlike wonder, miracle mindset attitude is just the right energy for doing that. And nobody needs to know, and you don't have to worry about what anybody's going to think about you, right? That's the human stuff that gets in the way.
Okay, this one is from Audra Lee. When sending healing energies to anyone, is it up to them to want the healing? Of course, I send them love and light also.
Yeah, speaking of wanting, right? The guides say that no, it is not necessary for them to want it, that your healing energy goes out and is received regardless. And that is absolutely an energy, and it comes from your heart. And they're saying that this is also a very important time to let go of the wanting and to trust. So instead of, oh my God, I want them to heal so badly, can you feel you're blocking what you're radiating? Instead of, I have within me the power to channel healing energy, not from me, but from source. I have this, and together with source, it is happening. We've released the wanting, we're just having it present, we're trusting it. Totally different feeling, and now the flow ensues. So the other person is going to receive it, whether they want it or not. If it comes from the highest intention from you, from the heart, that's a beautiful gift.
I knew I saw one I wanted to ask here. It's anonymous, but how can we not be afraid of dying if in our life review we'll experience the pain that we caused others? I have so many regrets about pain that I've caused others.
Wow, that is a good one. Good answer from Spirit, too. They just gave it to me in a burst here. Your task now is self-forgiveness. And self-forgiveness is understanding that humans learn by trial and error. We do the best we can, and once we recognize when we've made mistakes, we set the intention not to make those mistakes again. When you find self-forgiveness, you take that with you across the veil. You won't revert to the state you might have been in 1 minute ago before you understood that it's okay, that you were very human. You'll get across the veil and you'll say, I made a lot of mistakes, but I have forgiven myself and I'm okay with watching it now. You've already relived that pain enough. Let me check. No, you will not have to relive it again. Okay? Once you forgive yourself for that. Beautiful question.
Another one is about charging for readings. I practice every day and I'm normally about 98% accurate. I've been doing this for quite some time now, and I really just want to help people more than anything, but feel some people don't take me seriously unless I charge.
And that could be true. And make sure it's not an assumption or just a feeling on your part. 98% accuracy sounds awesome, and I hope it is awesome. Brenda did a test reading for me when I was trying to see, are you ready to go to the next level? And she said it was like 99% accurate, Suzanne. And I said, okay, great. That's awesome. Let me listen to it. And the challenge was her sitter was just lukewarm about it. And I said, why are you lukewarm when it was so accurate? And the woman said, because everything Brenda told me, and she doesn't mind me sharing this now, everything Brenda told me also applied to 3 other people I have across the veil. So see, there are a lot of things that are very generic, and we can say accurate, accurate, accurate. That's why those differentiators like whittling and magic markers that I talked about, the things that make a person stand out, are so important. We want that high accuracy. But this is what I tell all my students, and this is great for those of you who have no plans to be a medium, but you may have readings with a medium. The real test of a reading is, does the person receiving the reading leave the reading and say, I know that was my loved one? That's what we go for. We want them to be convinced. And anybody in that situation will not hesitate to pay you and understand why you're charging, because we put a lot of time and effort into this training and the doing and the focus that it takes. So it's all about balancing that energy. And we always want to be willing to give back the money if we don't feel that we did as good a job as we could. How much to charge and when to charge is a whole different subject. But I remember when I was just asking for a donation, and people have a lot of fear around money. And I remember somebody gave me $18, and I just thought, I don't know if that's all they could pay, but I feel that that was worth more than that. And so there is an element of value. But there's a wonderful spiritual business teacher named George Kao, who gave a great equation. That's K-A-O, Kao. An equation for how much to charge for any spiritual service. And I try to live by that as well. And it is enoughness, meaning, is what you're charging enough to satisfy why you want to charge? Is it a good balance of energy? Does it pay the bills? That kind of thing. Enoughness. And the second part of the equation is compassion. Is it too much so that your client has to scrimp and save to do this thing that they want so badly? Is it taking advantage of somebody that's in grief to charge that much? With compassion, we find a nice, just the right amount. So anytime you set a price for anything, is it enough? And is it compassionate for the person who's receiving this service? I just thought that was a super equation and love to pass that on.
Anonymous asks, what are your thoughts on the use of a pendulum to connect to our higher consciousness?
I know that it works beautifully. And it works beautifully because you're trusting it and you're trusting intuition and the body to speak through it, because there really are subtle vibrations coming through the fingers that cause that, and your energy field causes it. But it can be a crutch when you ultimately realize that you don't need any instrument to have that direct knowing. I know people who have had frightening experiences with the pendulum that it kind of went awry after a while, and they started getting messages that knocked them off balance. And that could have been Spirit's way of saying, you don't need this. You have everything you need as consciousness itself, as a soul. Trust this. So yeah, I know that playing with pendulums is part of this path for many of us. And I had one for a while, and then it was like, but it was more like a game to me, because the answers are already in the field. Trust that.
Margie asks, do our pets know that we are okay after we pass? They can't go to a medium, and I always worry about my fur babies when I'm not here anymore.
The guides immediately take me to the story of Bear, this big black Newfoundland dog on my street in Florida, who was deeply mourning his mother her human mother, when she passed. He didn't know. And the difference was, when I saw that dog, I ran out to the street and I said, who's this? You have a new dog? And my neighbor said, yes, we just adopted him from a woman at church. She was the only owner of this dog, but he won't eat. He won't go to the bathroom. He's so depressed. So I went to right after that, a meditation circle. Bev, were you part of that one then? Yes, Bev was even there. And we always lift people up in prayer at the beginning of those circles. And I asked the group, let's lift up Bear. You know, would that be silly to pray for a dog or an animal? Not at all. So here's this group of 10 or 12 of us praying that this dog know that everything is well. This woman had had that dog for 3 days. I went back home. A few hours later, I saw her and that dog and her other dog walking past the window, and the dog was romping and playing. I went rushing outside and I said, what happened here? She said, I don't know. He just suddenly got up. He ate, he pooped. He's just a totally different dog. And I said, then I know what happened. And I told her about our group praying for him. If that doesn't convince anybody of the power of prayer, and how if a being does not have as much consciousness as we do, we can use our consciousness to heal, I don't know what story would. It's just a beautiful, affirming example of that. So, wow, I'm so glad I got to share that story, because I haven't thought of that in years. Excellent. Good choice, Bev. Did you think of it when you read it, Bev?
When I read it, I immediately thought of the bear story. So.
Yeah. Very good.
Here are two, and they're kind of the same thing. This is almost a twofer from Nancy and Dale. Nancy says, can the soul have more than one life experience going on in the same plane of existence at the same time? And Dale's question is very similar, but it takes on another angle. Could we have another?
Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
Okay.
One more
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Yes, the soul can, and the guides say this gets back to the point that across the veil for the soul, there is no time, and there's no time. There's actually no space. It's all experience. So the soul could be playing like a deck of cards, playing several hands at once, and often does. But we want to know, okay, so could I run into another incarnation from my soul here in this life? Yes. And we often call those twin souls. I'm not sure if that's the exact same definition of it. I don't have personal experience with it, but the guides say it does happen. And yet the other lives in other eras are happening at once, because for the soul, there is no time. And what's the second part of that?
Amazing. All right. So Dale says, can souls exist throughout the universe in other life forms, in multiple life forms at the same time?
So what the guides are showing me is our definition here that we're calling the soul is related to the human experience only. Okay. It's all source energy, right? Just different patterns overlapping. Yeah.
This is interesting from Deb. She says, with the recent discovery of civilizations that were 25, 30,000 years ago and potentially older, it seems like humanity has risen and then fallen many times. what are the insights on this from Sanaya?
Sanaya says you can actually trust that there have been cataclysmic events. They're showing me a Ferris wheel that goes round and round and round, that we learn through each cycle of time that death is not the end, and to not feel fear by civilizations ending. They said term limits. Everything has its limit. Even our physical lifetimes end because we've stopped growing. Many people you learn what you came here to learn, you experience what you came here to learn, so we come back again in a different body. So even whole cultures go through cycles, and not to be afraid of that. It's all part of one bigger plan and the whole evolution of species of being human. Each civilization, even though they had their own technologies and they were very wise, the guides are saying there's always more to be learned at different levels, emotionally, spiritually, technologically. So cool.
2 questions on the Bless Me method.
Good.
One is from Kristen. And so the S's, one of the S's is shift. Kristen asks, do you and others in your classes feel something when you shift? I was wondering if at some point in that Bless Me method, I should feel something.
Okay, that's going to be different for every person, and even for each person, different from time to time. Sometimes I feel like an elevator lift, and I feel lightheaded. Other times I feel nothing. And it becomes a matter of then trusting that because you had the intention that in shifting, you're going to a higher floor, going back to our elevator analogy, that you have done so. And then what follows the experience, the merging in experience, shows you, the shift must have taken place because I'm having this adventure in consciousness. So do not feel that you have to sense something different when you shift. I will tell you a lovely tool that works really well is when you do that shift with your eyes closed, roll your eyes upward in your head. Try not to move your head, just roll them upward, not to the point of being painful. Try it now. Just close your eyes a minute and say shift and roll your eyes up. That makes my lip twitch. You can open your eyes now. It also gives me an elevator lift feel. It's a beautiful tool because it triggers alpha waves in your brain just by rolling your eyes upward like that. An alpha state is perfect for connecting with higher consciousness. Do not hold your eyes up once you've rolled them up. Let them naturally come back down. It's just the shift. Roll the eyes up, and there you are. And then they come back down.
The other question about the Bless Me was someone could not get their head clear when she got to the merge experience and engaged part. How do you keep your mind clear when you're in that portion of the Bless Me?
It is very challenging to keep the mind clear at any time. Just notice that, do the same practice we do in the very brief sip of the divine, and simply notice anything that is not your intention arising in awareness. Notice it and let it float past, and just go back to experiencing. Notice, oh, that's my own thought. Let it go. Go back to experiencing. And if you start to get frustrated, back up a few steps, back to lift, and think gratitude. Maybe expand your vibration again. Just go back through the steps again. It's all a flow. And it's all training. So don't worry about it. You're not doing anything wrong.
This one is kind of funny, so I thought I would bring some fun in. Can 2 or more people across the veil hold hands, hug? And does it have the same feeling as when they are on Earth? Do they have any like contact at all?
Okay. That's a good one. I'm asking the guides as you're asking it, and they take my breath away as they step in a little stronger for this one. And they say, yes, you can take on a body, but it is not the same at all. And you have memories of what touching is like, but it's not how you understand touching here. So yes, you create bodies and you can make the motions as if to walk and hug, but it is very soon apparent that you do not need to hug. You convey a hug with energy and information. And they tell me, that was Sanaya talking, but they tell me that the one thing our loved ones across the veil miss is the sense of touch of us, because they're more present with you now than ever before. But they miss the touch, which reminds me of a story I haven't told in years. And that is doing a reading for a group from Helping Parents Heal, bring it through their kids, which I don't do too often. But the host of this gathering, I was at their house, had this dog, and I started bringing through their son who's across the veil, and this dog that was a pit bull, and I have little dachshunds, so I was a little intimidated by the pit bull, jumped up on the seat beside me and pressed up against me. They were touching each other, the boy across the veil and the dog, through me. It was just very cool, but a little intimidating for me to have this big face right in my face. So yeah, our loved ones across the veil will often use our pets to get a sense of touching us.
So, believe it or not, there are several, I would say maybe 5 or 6 folks who have a very similar question. I want to acknowledge those who lost their spouse really even within the recent weeks or months. So this is a common theme here, asking about trying so hard to connect with them, but not necessarily being able to yet. Several of them have been very successful connecting with spirit in general, but they're wondering what can they do? When can they expect to hear
Okay.
that kind of thing?
Okay. So anybody, no matter who it is who passed, that word trying so hard, that phrase is what I'd love for you to pay attention to. That energy of need will actually get in the way. And it comes back to, again, this trusting spirit that your connection with your loved one will unfold perfectly for you. And there's absolutely no way of knowing when that will happen. Stephanie had a beautiful breakthrough that she shared with me, and I'll share it in next month's monthly connection. And I don't know how long she's been trying, but I mean, you've already connected with your daughter, Stephanie, but it's so off the charts fabulous, the evidence that she got, that I really, when I say this is possible for all of us, I know it is. And yet you can't put a timeline on that. So if you could downgrade the trying to trusting, which is actually an upgrade. So, okay, that's not the right word, downgrade. Transmute the energy of trying to trusting. That's it. Transmute the energy. Take that intensity and turn up the trust. And that's a surrendering. So if you're trying right now, you try anything, and you'll feel a clutching in your stomach and your chest. My whole torso goes tight. But the trusting says, that uses that phrase we put in the video about the glitch last week. I would prefer that I hear from my loved one now, and I trust the process. Okay? That shows we realize there are many things out of our control, and we humans love to control everything, but realizing that our need to control will actually block the connection. Hopefully you'll be willing to say, all right, I know in my heart you're still here, and I acknowledge you're probably trying to get through to me, and I will do my best to simply surrender and be open to however you show up to me. That will go a long way to helping you. Okay.
Jody says, you mentioned briefly a while back that some spirits may spend time in sort of a medical-like sanctuary when they first cross over. Can you talk a bit more about that? Why would a soul need to go there, and who attends to them?
Well, Bev, you've been set up, because with that, asking that question of all those that are in the box, that reading I told you all about earlier with the young man who'd only been across the veil for a month, he very clearly showed me he's in that sanctuary, and he passed from drug addiction as a result of his drug addiction. And it's been a month in human terms, but he said, there's no time. Think of what it feels like in your dreams. You're not aware of time passing. You just have experiences. And he described it. Oh, I remember now, right? He said it's a healing place, and there's this light blue light that's around all the time that just, it has a feeling of comfort to it. He said, I'm surrounded by what you would know as angels, but they don't have wings, but they're angels because they're ministering to me and helping me to shift my energy and let go of the story that led to the addiction. And there's no judgment. And he showed me, this is what I was smiling about. He said, tell my mom and dad, if you stacked up 5 down comforters and you fell back into them, just imagine how that feels. He said, he's not talking about physical comfort. It's that feeling of being in this place. And he said, you know, they're going to want to know, am I happy? And he said, it's not a matter of being happy. I'm at peace. And it's something I haven't felt in so long. And he said, I don't know when I'll move on, but I've gone to the light. Don't think I haven't gone to the light, just leaving the body. You're in the light. But he said, it's a blue light right now, and it's a healing place, and everything is fine. So there's a beautiful answer for that one.
From MJ, I've heard someone say, give yourself a muscle test to see if something I said resonates. What does that mean exactly?
That's using kinesthetics, using the body to test yes or no with things. And there are various methods. Many teachers will tell you to pinch these fingers together. And if you, a yes, you can't pull them apart no matter how hard you try. And a no, you go weak. A lot of people talk about holding your hand out and having somebody push on it. A yes is strong, a no is weak. I will tell you that personally, I have yet to have that work on me. I can't, it doesn't work, the yes or no. I break it immediately. My hand is strong no matter what. So I need to find somebody like an energy practitioner who works with that and says, what percentage of the people does that not work for? I know that I trust more than my muscles. I trust the heart and the gut feeling. So it's just another way of testing yes and no's. And it's very useful for people. Like if you go to a grocery store, allegedly you can pick up a piece of fruit and say, is this good for me or not? And you can test it there. I just tested in the body, tuning in, knowing the body is connected to the all, the whole field. And that's why we have direct knowing, which is the definition of intuition. Intuition speaks through the body.
Here's one. Suzanne, how do you feel the personality of a very young baby that crossed the veil?
I don't. And that's how I know it's a very young baby. So when I have a baby, the guides across the veil show me this symbol. All right, since I'm not seeing the spirits themselves. So I get the charades, I know it's a baby, then I tune in and I feel, is there a personality here? And that's when I will say objectively to my client, I can sense that you have a young child across the veil, but they didn't live long enough to even develop a personality. And I mean, a very distinct one, of course. You know, all babies cry and all babies smile. So, but a distinct, unique personality. So that's how.
Here's a question from Anonymous. Is it possible to connect with a family member who is long gone? For example, over 100 years ago. I'd like to connect and have a clue as to what happened to him, and we have no information.
It is possible if it's going to serve a greater good, including the clients and those around them. That soul will step into the story, even if the story has been dormant for a while. Isn't that interesting? So we live our stories even across the veil, as long as it serves both sides of the veil. And then we may decide to simply rest as a soul for a while, but that story is always part of the soul, even if other aspects of the soul have reincarnated. So that won't matter. If there's something helpful going to come of that, and you have a very clear intention, a medium can tap into that person. The challenge is getting evidence, but there should be historical or genealogical type evidence that they can get through to back up what they're sharing. Evidence is not absolutely necessary, but that's the way I've been trained, and I know that it really lends credence to things that we can't validate, such as explanations of why certain things happen. So I hope that's helpful.
Speaking of masculine and feminine energies, how do you know if they are out of balance, and how do you bring them back into balance?
Okay. Hopefully you get to the point where you're sensitive enough to feel it. I credit my wonderful friend Annie Bond with showing me about pulling in the feminine energy up the central axis from below as you breathe in, pulling down the masculine energy from below above. I also learned this from Wolf about the importance of balancing, but I didn't realize it was so much the feminine and masculine. We all have equal portions, no matter what our gender is. You can be sensitive enough as you breathe in from below and breathe down that energy from above to see if they're balanced. I'm very happy that I can now feel if I'm way too strong on one day in the masculine energy and not enough in the feminine. If you can't sense it, don't worry. You set the intention that they come into balance. You ask spirit and your higher self, bring these in equal balance, and you breathe them in and you test again. Are they in balance? And you can feel it. If you can't feel it, know that your intention and the breathing with that goal does it. Notice how you feel before you do that at the beginning of a meditation. Notice how you feel afterwards, and you should notice a very nice improvement. Okay.
One from Beth. Do those across the veil have groups that they reincarnate with several times?
I know the answer that I think I know, but I'm pausing to let spirit answer through me. Oh, round and round you go, they say. Soul families that know each other for all eternity, but you do take on different roles. So yeah, that's why there's recognition in certain people, right? I know you. How do I know you? At the soul level.
Aaron says, when I read about and I get the urge to try to contact archangels, I feel like I'm snubbing my guides. Is that the case? If I reach out to something bigger and better, like an archangel, am I snubbing the guides who are in the trenches with me every day?
Well, what a great question. And as always, I'm going to ask my guides the answer to that. They say that it's actually your guides partially responsible for putting the thought in your head to go even higher. So it's not snubbing them at all, because when you interact with the archangels, you are raising the love even more. You're acknowledging that there are those with a higher perspective, and the guides say they're right here at your side anyway. They say there's no competition across the veil, and they turn to the archangels as well. So don't worry about it. Great question.
How can we let go of our attachment and worry for our grown children?
That is absolutely part of the spiritual path, is coming to understand that all beings are souls who are here on their own path. So it's, the spirit says it is something that you will likely not ever completely let go of, because that is part of the human condition, and that heart connection. You will always, from your love, want to help them and keep them from harm. So just, they say it's a matter of reconditioning and repatterning the thoughts and finding keywords that will help you, their own path. I love them so much that I'm going to allow them to learn from their trial and error and their ups and downs, just as I have.
Okay, this is a question about meditation. Ruth says she has, she's at an end stage illness, and wonders how will that affect my ability to achieve the level of meditation to make a connection, and sort of how can we get around that, deal with it?
I'm reminded of Brenda She's actually here right now saying it was very challenging when she was in end stage of an illness to concentrate. She actually had a healing that allowed her to focus more at the end. So I would call on the angels to bring you as much clarity as possible. I would ask others to pray for you that you have clarity and receive the healing of your energetic bodies to the greatest extent. But just know that whatever you're experiencing, your guides are helping you as much as possible, and it's all okay. And to just flow with however your body is at the moment. Honor it.
This is from Regina. When I watch Messages of Hope on Sunday, Suzanne responds to every question, sometimes waiting for Sanaya to answer, and also interrupts her own responses to correct them based on something Sanaya has just told her. I often see Suzanne look up or to the side in interviews as well on Shift Network Humanities team. I wondered if I was right. Is there a time perhaps when Suzanne does face a quandary or issue or trouble? I doubt she has many of those, where she answers from her own thoughts and not Sanaya's.
Well, I hope you're talking about just when I do events and online things like this, because many times I'm just in human mode and I'm just answering as me. We're not always in this merged state, which I am when I'm online and teaching. This is absolutely the blended state, and they do catch me. And many times they do that just so that it's obvious to all of you that this is a cooperative sharing here. It's why they changed my voice when we really do a total blending. Now that I'm talking more and channeling them more with my eyes open, I'm not looking so much up and left anymore. But why would I want to speak as just me when their answers are so much better? So before we started this webinar, I sat and I said, may your answers be my answers. And when they catch me is when they want to make sure that I've said something their way, or they correct me because I didn't get it quite right. Did I answer that fully, Steph?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the second, and I think that's kind of the first part of the question. And I'm wondering if the second part of her question, where she says, is there ever a time when Suzanne does face a quandary or issue or trouble where she answers from her own thoughts and not Sanaya's? I'm wondering if they mean in your own personal life, if you,
Oh,
you know,
yes,
just,
sure there are, and
Yeah.
and they'll grab me and they'll say there is a better way, and the awakened way, right? Yeah, and I can tell when I'm teaching when I have dropped the link, because the answer is just, it comes from a different level, and it just takes a moment to reconnect. It's just a little shift that I do, and then we flow again. So I can tell when, when you sit with somebody you're in relationship with, don't they tell their stories the same way every time? I mean, some of the same wording, the same phrasing. So I'm hypersensitive to when people in interviews ask me questions that I don't do that, because that means I'm coming from my human side. Because anything from spirit, teaching point here, will always be fresh and novel, even if you're telling a memory or something that happened already. So, for example, I'm preparing for my Helping Parents Heal and Ayan's keynote speeches that are going to happen in August. And I'm going to start with a little story about Susan, my stepdaughter who passed, but I've told it many times. And I said to Sanaya, can you give me a new way of telling this? So we have a whole new way this time. And that's how it's great if any of you can get in the habit of saying, may your words be mine. Will you guide me always? I don't want to tell the same story over and over the same way. So a great tool for any of you, when you catch yourself at a party telling the same old story, or make friends with new people in the same old story, just ask spirit, how can we tell this in a fresh way that maybe might be helpful to somebody? So
This is for Marianne. It's a mediumship question. I had an experience where I see very clear evidence from a departed daughter for a client that she was safe and excited to be working with youth that pass. It was something she always wanted to do. However, another medium said that she had not left, was terribly confused and feeling dark. How could those messages be so different? And how could I, as a medium, help with the mother's confusion?
Oh my goodness. This is why it's so important to get evidence in a reading and to make sure that most of your readings are relying on that evidence. Please, mediums, do not ever tell a loved one their loved one is in a dark place and stuck. It does harm. And it may be simply something passing through the medium's filter. I have yet to see any soul, after doing readings since 2009, in a dark place. Not a single one. Yet I have had, my guides just said, tone it down a little. I have had a mother come to me in great despair from a medium who told her daughter was in a dark place. I shared this in one of our monthly connections. Some of you may remember it. And I just knew it wasn't so. I said, did the medium give you any evidence that she was connecting with your daughter? She thought about it and she said, no, not any. She didn't sense how her daughter passed. Only after the woman told the medium her daughter had taken her own life did all of this darkness come up. It went through the medium's filter. So I said, let's see if we can connect with your daughter. And I tuned in and got all sorts of evidence that I couldn't possibly have known. This is why I share the evidence at the beginning of these sessions, to back up any of the teaching I give you. Her daughter was absolutely fine. She was not in a dark place. So it is okay to question mediumship. Ask for evidence. Trust in your heart what you sense. You can get two completely different readings from two different mediums. We can do harm. May we always hold ourselves to the highest standards and ask for evidence. And if we see something that seems harmful, question it. Do not pass it on to the client. Take it into meditation and ask your guides to teach me more about this. What do I need to know? So that's my best advice.
I want to start working more with my guides. I have many of them, but my question is, can I start working with my mom in spirit as my guide, similar to how Suzanne does Brenda? So I'm assuming it's, that family relationship, that close friend relationship. Can she work with her mother in spirit as her guide?
Of course you can, and I encourage anybody to work with your loved ones across the veil, but it's advisable is the word that the guides are using now, to receive what spirit sends to you, to be open to who comes to you. The main guides who are supposed to work with you are chosen because they are such a good frequency match. I didn't ask for Brenda to be my guide. I don't know if anybody's more surprised than I am that she's my guide. She's laughing now because she said to me when she was still in physical form, we're going to be teaching mediumship together. Brenda was not even a practicing medium at the time, and I was a mediumship teacher, and I thought that was pretty cheeky, right? That's a little cocky there to say, I'm going to be teaching mediumship with you, Suzanne. And I said, okay, Brenda, just thinking whatever. And now we are, but it's from her across the veil. So that just unfolded. She came to me right after she passed, and the next thing you know, she's popping up in my readings. And the next thing you know, she has taken over from my main guide, Boris, who was never my mediumship specialist. And she is. She studied it here. Boris was doing a fine job, but Brenda was a teacher. So we are now teaching together right now. You gotta love it. So yeah, work with your mom, but be open and grateful and receptive to any guides and how they best work through all of you. Good question.
Deborah asks, how do we stop coming back? Is that possible? Life is so painful sometimes.
You stop coming back by choice when at the soul level, you realize you have experienced the fullness of love in full expression, which is life. you get to the other side and you realize there's always going to be an up and a down across the veil. That life in human form comes with pain. And you remember why you took on this life that you just had. So actually, souls willingly come back knowing it's going to be hard. And we can tell we're in only human mode. Nothing wrong with this when we steadfastly say, I'm never coming back. When you can shift to the higher perspective and say, nobody gets out of here unscathed, and yet we keep coming back. Is that sadistic? Or could we really grow from this? You know, my Susan would have been 45 last week. We celebrated her birthday, but she lived to 27 in a physical form. And yet, the pain we went through after she passed has resulted in literally helping millions of people, millions, to come to know the Awakened Way principles. At the human level, when I was going through that grief, would I have said, hey, let me come back and do this again? I could use some sailor words here and say, no way, right? But it's learning to shift. Now I know why I had a craving for popcorn before. I usually leave here and have an ice cream bar. And I said, I think I'm going to have popcorn tonight. And I never eat popcorn. Now I know why, because it keeps coming up tonight, right? We learn to just get that soul's higher perspective. And when you get that fully, when you cross the veil, you say, I can go back and do that again. I remember I'm never given more than I can handle, because we have legions of angels and we have the ability to shift our focus and step out at any time through practices of sitting in the silence and just shifting on the fly right here, right now. So that's why we gather for these meetings, right? Just to remember who we are, to fortify each other, to feel the love, to turn it up, and hopefully make our paths easier. Beautiful. All right. Thank you, Bev, and thank you all for the questions. I hope you enjoyed those questions and answers. I hope you felt the higher energy and that you feel uplifted by it, and most of all, inspired to go within to spirit for your own answers anytime you want to go higher. Go out and have a great week. Bye-bye.